Welcome. I'm Andrew Kolikoff.
I'm Russ Johns.
And we are
The Secret Sauciers.
Yes. So I'm excited. This is actually our first show with a great guest. For those of you who don't know about the show or haven't seen episode 0 or the introduction, this show is about delivering the secret sauce to you.
The thing that people don't always talk about.
Right. Everybody.
But we're going to bring that to the
right. Everybody talks about their success in life and the actions that they had to take, what the challenges were, how they overcame those challenges, and what that story is. We want to tell a different story. We want our guests to tell a different story. We want them to tell the story of the stuff they had to learn about themselves, so that whatever challenge they faced, they could overcome it faster, better, recognize it better, have better anticipation. And so we feel that really the secret sauce more comes from there than it does in any special thing you can do on the outside. And something I learned is I've mentored about 500 startups, and something I learned was that really was where and is where it comes from.
Yeah.
So enough about that. Our first guest is John Janney, and John's going to introduce himself, but real quick, John is or was a former CEO, CFO, multiple times of a number of different public utilities around the country, and then everybody has a longer story, but I think John chose to retire, and then you got sucked back in, and now he's doing some consulting again, and now he just landed a utility, I think, up in Washington, where he's consulting to that organization. So thank you for being our guest today.
Thank you.
We're so happy to have you. So I explained the premise of this show to John, and he's like, "I'm in," and I was like, "Well, that was easy. That was easy."
Well, I think a lot of people are not talking about this, and it really needs to be discussed, because what we have here is, a society full of change. The social media, the ability to publish a show like this is really amazing. And one of the things that we need to talk about is, how do we get through those limiting beliefs, and how do we challenge ourselves to excel?
Well, speaking of limiting beliefs, was there a key moment in your career that you can hearken back upon, and where you realized something about you or about other people in you, or something that really changed sort of the direction of how outcomes were coming about?
Yeah, and it's long time ago. It was in my high school years, actually, that I discovered something that I've carried with me for the
Are you comfortable sharing that story?
Sure.
Because I'm going to ask you.
There's some I wouldn't be comfortable with. This one I am.
Okay, good.
So we were small high school, 500 kids. So I was probably as average, a little above athlete, but because it was a small school, I got to play and played 3 sports, and I grew up with this group of kids, and we just had a lot of talent. I had a couple teammates that were, national caliber talent. We were favored to win the state championship in basketball.
Oh, excellent. Okay. I was wondering which sport.
Yeah, and I was playing point guard, and my job was to get the ball up the court and feed my teammates. But I didn't realize that for a while. I could, because I had the ball all the time, I could easily be the top scorer.
Right.
And we had kind of a wake-up moment midway through the season. We got just clobbered by this team that we should have beat, and losing isn't fun. And I got to thinking really long and hard about it, and I looked back at the prior games in the season, and the games that we lost were the games that I was the highest scorer. And it was like
An epiphany.
an epiphany. It's like, I have all these talented people. If I can just make them better, enable them to score, enable them to be better, and actually be the high scorers and get the limelight and the stars and stuff
So-
like that. And so that from then on out, we went to the state tournament, and you know we didn't end up winning it, but we made it all the way there. And so in my professional career, I've come to realize this same thing there. If it's not all about me, and it can't be, because if it is, we're going to fail. You know, I'm a failed human being, and I can't do everything. So I like people, and I like working with people, and I've been very fortunate over the years to be able to surround myself with people that are a heck of a lot smarter than me, and enable them, give them the tools and the resources to get what they need to get done.
You know, I love your analogy. I was a tennis player, and that, you know, tennis is different because it's not a team sport. But you have to come to realizations on the court if you really want to win. You really have to like try different things and see how your opponent adapts to that. But a team sport is entirely different, and you had to trust. You obviously had to create some spacing, and obviously we can relate this to
Yes.
business. But you had to ultimately trust them and trust yourself, because if the ball, you know, the game came down to the wire, you know, did you want the ball or did you want to dish the ball?
Right. Oh, I wanted the ball.
So you did want the ball.
Yeah, absolutely. But you know, my with that epiphany moment, I realized that, you know, my outlook and the way I engaged in the game needed to be different.
Of life and business.
Exactly. Yep. And
So the practice you had to adopt was the ability to hand things off, even though you wanted to hold on to it.
You had to let go,
to
didn't
let
you?
go.
had to let go, because, you know, any company, any business, you know, public, private, what have you, needs good people. And the other element, I think, is putting the right people in the right roles. So
And having the right
Yeah.
operations in those roles for them to succeed.
Exactly. Yep.
Because you can put the right people in a right role, but if you don't have the right systems in place, they're going to struggle,
Exactly.
right?
Yep.
So, and that's where you come in, or you bring in an operations person to come in
Yeah.
and deliver upon that. So, did you, so your level of trust with your teammates, whether in your utilities or on the court, obviously was something that was incredibly important to you. So you would, I would guess, give them a little bit and test them out, and build that trust.
Yes. You know the strengths and weaknesses of your team. You get to know that over time, whether it's in a sporting event or in business. And you provide roles and challenges that play to their strengths. And I mean, I can't tell you how many times over the years I've, you know, come into a new company and I encounter somebody who's, you know, well, that's the problem person, you know, they're really struggling bad. And, you know, you get to know them a little bit. 9 times out of 10, they're not bad people. They just, they aren't in a role that is conducive to the way they think about the world. It doesn't play to their strengths. And oftentimes it's just a matter of changing their role or moving them into something else.
Perspective, perspective and their position are not in alignment.
So
Right.
something I say, John, is that if my business or your company, anybody's company or business could talk, I would play this game with myself where I would pretend it would talk to me and it would say, okay, Andrew, right now when you're doing X today, whatever that X is, I'm getting the absolute most out of you. And I think we as leaders not only need to understand that of ourselves, but we need to understand that for our people. And that's what I think you're speaking to and getting them in the right roles is, they may be good at a bunch of things, but what is their absolute gift?
Right.
And how do we get them to focus on that? And quite frankly, he said 2 words, let go. I cannot stress to you enough how that is the single biggest issue of any startup business owner or any small business, is they don't know how to let go and dish the ball. They think it's on them, or they think they don't have the money to do it if they're perhaps too small.
Well, it's limiting beliefs.
It's limiting beliefs. So,
I want to ask John. So when you're in that moment, John, one of the things that I know a lot of people may struggle with is there's a feeling that you get when you're working with somebody to improve their position or their perspective, and one of the things that I've always thought through is you have to get past the fear, because there's frustration, one, and there's like, if I just did this myself, I would get done in half the time.
Absolutely.
And if I hand it off, it's going to take me twice as long because I have to teach somebody how to do it. The short-term goal is there. The long-term benefit goes away, though. So how does your mindset change that fear and frustration to the ability to help somebody else grow?
Yeah. Well, for me, it's always been trying to get to know the person, and that requires, as a leader, especially, to be vulnerable.
Relationships.
You have to be willing to
God.
let people know.
You just
that
hit right on it. That's something that he knows. That's a thing I talk
really,
about.
and if you can be vulnerable as a leader,
there's strength in
there's
vulnerability.
strength
You guys hear what
and-
he's saying? There's
and-
strength in vulnerability.
and then people are willing to share more personal things with you
Because you're showing how flawed you are.
you're doing the same with them, so that the barriers come down. And then when you get to know a person better, you can better understand what are their dreams, what are their aspirations, what do they like to do, what are they afraid of, and help them become the best person they can be in their role in the company, and then the team environment starts to develop, and you get a high performing team.
But so what you would do to build that trust so that you could let go was you would share some of your fears. You would share some of your personal growth and some of your lessons learned when you got kicked in the teeth, right? And you would share that with them and told them, and that was your vulnerability. And that was, so you see, it's not, letting go are 2 words that are very easily said, but there are steps and a process to letting go. So what John just revealed was how he would go about doing that would be he would expose himself.
Yeah.
Right?
I love that, John. Is there a thread that's traveled through your life in respect to your vulnerability in terms of your position, helping others grow, and kind of see that perspective? Is there an area in your life that has been consistent?
Yeah, maybe. I think in a way, I grew up in a small town in Montana, and I always go out into the big bad world feeling like the underdog, right? I felt, well, how am I going to measure up to these, Ivy League graduates? How am I going to measure up to, these big city kids that, I always figured they're here, and I'm always kind of looking up. And so, part of it, my vulnerability has always been, there must be somebody better out there to do this. But what I've found is that many times there's just people that they hold back, and they're not willing to tackle it. So some of my greatest experiences professionally were when somebody was looking for something to be done and nobody was stepping up to do
Right.
it, and I'd go, you know, I
As
didn't-
CEO, you would say, I do it?
Well,
Just stepping up to the plate to say, hey, here's the leadership. Let me show you how it's done.
yeah.
And then have people follow you.
And what I've come to realize over time is that it's okay to not know how to do something. Because
I just had this conversation yesterday.
because and nobody knows how to do everything, and
Well,
and
somebody's
if-
going to cut brush for the first time, right?
right, and but if everybody is afraid to tackle something because they've never seen it before, they don't know how to do it, then you're not going to move your company very far. So you just say, okay, so let's get the best people we can together, and we'll figure this out.
So you were
know?
leading by example, where you were saying, okay,
Yeah.
I'll grab the ball. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so when people saw that you did that and then could do that, they're like, wait a minute, I could do the same thing.
Mm-hmm. And getting to
Well, then you teach them how to do it.
Yeah, well, and getting to what you said a minute ago, Russ, in terms of letting go, letting people do their thing. Again, harking back to when I was a young man, my dad had a construction and mining business. Not big, but relatively successful. And he put me in charge of a job this one time. I was probably 18, 19 years old, and a lot of the guys on the job were 3 times my age. They all could have been my dad or even my grandfather.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, like, Dad,
What am I doing?
what are you doing? I don't know how to do this. And he just looked at me and he said, John, I don't have anybody else I can trust. And I said, oh crap, and he says,
So now you can't fail your dad.
Well, I can. And I said, so Dad, can you just give me some words of advice? And he said, he thought for a minute. He said, just one thing. He said, your job is to tell them what to do, set the goals and the objectives, but don't tell them how to do it, because they're professionals in their field. They're going to know how to do it better than you do, probably. Obviously, if you see somebody just totally screwing something up, you got to step in. But I've taken that with me too.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's great.
You have to
That's
be
a great
willing
nugget
to
of
let,
knowledge.
and you guys have probably seen this too. You give somebody something to do, and you're kind of watching them, and you're kind of going like, and then you kind of see, and it's like, oh man, I didn't even think of that.
Yeah.
And they
Yeah.
figured out a
Well,
better way
it's-
than if I had told them how to do it. It would
Exactly.
have.
It's sort of like when you let go of your toddler and say, okay, come walk, and you're like, oh, he's
Yeah.
gonna fall, but you gotta let him fall.
Right, yeah.
You gotta let him, right?
Yeah.
You gotta let go. Like my son just moved out like 2
Yeah.
months ago, and I had to let him go.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? And I
Exactly.
know that he doesn't know what he needs to know, but he's gonna learn.
Yep.
Yeah.
So
Life is an experiment, right?
Well, and that's a good analogy with the family. Being a father of children, it's very much similar in leading a company where you grow to love and respect the people that are working for you. You want the best for them, but sometimes the best for them is giving them a new challenge that they might fail at, and failure is okay, and you have to be
Failure is
willing to
very
accept
okay.
that. And as long as it isn't a catastrophic failure,
Right,
and,
measured failure.
and you can learn from it, and then
well, that's where growth happens.
growth happens. But that also creates more trust. If even if the other team members seeing, well, you gave this guy this,
And they said they saw from you that you didn't fire them because they failed.
Yeah.
You gave
was a
them
safe-
you gave them the ability to fail, and that was something that was big with Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs would actually get angry. He would slam his fist on his desk and say, "We're not failing fast enough,"
Yeah.
because that was what created not only the culture within the organization, but the innovation within the
Right.
organization, the
Yeah.
willingness to fail.
Mhm.
Right?
It's like that person going out and figuring out a new way of seeing
Yeah,
things or providing it to get done.
exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well,
It's been phenomenal, Jim.
I
Appreciate
thank
it.
you
Thank you.
for sharing.
Thank you.
I love sports analogies, so little do you know, you got me all revved up. I thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been a
Thank
pleasure.
you so much.
Thank you, sir.
You
It's
bet.
always a pleasure. And I thank you, and be sure to tune in to our next Secret Saucier episode. And
More coming up
there you go.
all the time.
Hi, I'm Andrew,
I'm Russ.
and we are the Secret Sauciers.
We're here to bring you valuable information that can help you move your life forward.
And your business forward. And those realizations come from within you, and we're sharing that with you through our interviews with executives. So please tune in.
Subscribe to the channel and join us weekly.
Thank you.